So we have our Thursday live session here, where we'll be looking at, we have the ECB news release coming out at 8:45 GMT plus 8, then the ECB press conference at 9:30, together with the US CPI data release at 9:30 as well. So, quite straightforward. Before I do that, quick disclaimer, is any information shared in this video is not intended to be a trade recommendation. It's solely the opinion and views of me, the speaker. So if you're going to do any trades, remember to do your own analysis prior to entering any trades. With that said, what's happening at this point with the ECB news release at 8:30, the press conference at 9:30, 8:45, 9:30, and the CPI number? Quite straightforward. The focus should be on the euro dollar, right? The focus should be on the euro dollar. But before I do that, I'll also look into all the other pairs just to do a quick review and also a projection of where we think prices could head towards, right? So I'll try and do all this quickly before 8:45 so that when the news comes out, we can do that quick review of the ECB release as well. So start off here, right? So if you have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question or put it in the chat. Well, we have 8:45 rates, as we've been saying through the whole week already, no change to the rates expected, but we're going to pay some attention to the policy statement. What we expect to see here is that, they're going to be cautious, because before this, they were just talking about rates looking to increase towards the end of the year or into early next year. At this point, with the conflict, with the uncertainty, I think that we might see them mention that conflict and uncertainty and push it further into the future. So that might actually be in the statement. So, if they do say that, then we're going to see that euro weakness continue. With the press conference, I think just going to reiterate the same thoughts, the same comments that we're going to see, where they, express that concern towards the conflict. I think inflation at this point for the Eurozone is already high, but they're probably not thinking that it's peaked yet. So I think that because of the conflict, they're still going to hold off on any rates decision at this point. The US CPI number month on month was 0.6, expected 0.8. I'm looking at a 0.9 or even a 1% here. Core CPI expected a little bit of a drop because of excluding of oil prices. But, I brought up the investing.com economic calendar here as well. It's a bit small, but if you squint a bit, the CPI year on year, look at it, it was 7.5, expected at 7.9. I think that we've been talking about it. We might well see this reach that 8% number. So if it does hit that 8% number, then we're going to see quite a strong US dollar, because that's going to try and, reinforce the FOMC's view or action towards increasing rates. Unfortunately, because of the conflict, I would have loved to see them increase rates at 0.5%. But I think that because of what's happening now, they're probably going to be a little bit more cautious, do a 0.25 at the next FOMC meeting. And then because we have all the data, we've got very good employment numbers from the non-farm payrolls. We've got now potentially very, very high 8% CPI inflation numbers for the US. All that putting together, we could see it push towards that action from the FOMC at a 0.25. I would still love to see that 0.5%, right? So what this all means is that when we look at the dollar index, right, we were just having a discussion about this just before the call, just before I clicked record, was that, today, I'll zoom in a bit, today, the 10th of March, we've just seen the dollar not doing too much, right? It spiked down a little bit, it came back up, it tried to spike down, it came back up. It's pretty much at the same point where it started the day. at this 98.21 level. What the anticipation here now is that it looks like it's turning back down a little bit, but we were discussing it just then. We might actually see the dollar index push up towards that 98.40 or 98.40 to 98.50 level, right? Why? Because in this consolidation, if it does push higher, we're going to see it come towards that same consolidation here, 98.40, 98.50, that same point. So that push upwards could coincide with the CPI number, or stronger CPI number, could coincide with that push towards the upside for the US dollar index, right? And also that could also be a weaker euro. Like we've been mentioning this a couple of times already. The dollar index is made up of about 50-something%. It's weighted based on the euro. So if we see the euro weaken, we're going to see that push the US dollar index up quite a bit. So towards that 94 to 95, 98.40 to 98.50 range. But I think that because of that move, because of that trend towards the downside, with some discussions of probably the Russian-Ukraine conflict being resolved or having some sort of resolution possible in the horizon, we're possibly going to see this move towards that, move something like that, right? And then after that, maybe like we were saying, back towards the 98 level and possibly even below that. So we think that that might be the idea for the dollar index. This is on the H1 time frame. It could very well also work on the H4 time frame, same levels that we're looking at, just that it's a bit easier to see on the H1. All right. No questions so far. I hope you're catching it all okay. So just going through some of the pairs before we look at the euro dollar. Aussie USD. All right, Aussie USD, I'll take away this. So we talked about this on Tuesday night, where we were saying that if it breaks below, there's that selling opportunity, which it happened. It came very close to our take profit. Then if it broke above, it didn't go as much as what we expected, but then it's coming back down again. So I'll just take this away just so it's less confusing. But the Aussie dollar at this point, right? I would not enter any trade on the Aussie dollar at this point, right? The same thing being that today, the Aussie dollar started at this point here, 10th of March, right? Started at this point here, came down, went back up, came back down, very close to the starting point again. No real directions at this point. Wait for the dollar index to move. Then we're going to see some movements on the Aussie dollar as well. At this point, the most updated view would be for it to come towards that 7.3 level. But why I say that it's not a good trading area, because that's only like a 30 pip move, right? It's a 30 pip move. I wouldn't want to try and catch anything on that 30 pip move. I'll rather wait for it to break, then look to sell again. At this point, you can be looking at I'll say conservatively a 20 pip stop, 30 pip take, that kind of range. Why I would want to trade that, why I wouldn't want to do that trade is because your stop loss is a bit vague, right? It's a bit vague to stop loss there. I'd rather wait for it to break that support level before looking to trade it down. You could even go as far as about 40 pips, 20 stop, 40 take, still a 1:2 risk reward ratio towards the downside for the Aussie dollar. But this also means that you need a lot of patience to wait for it to break that 7.3 support level. Break, close below that point. It needs to be below 7.295. It needs to be below 7.295, close before you look for that selling opportunity. New Zealand US dollar. New Zealand US dollar, what we spoke about on Tuesday, on Monday still holds true. I'm still waiting for it to push towards the upside. it might seem a little bit counterintuitive at this point because we're looking for the Aussie to drop, we're looking for the Kiwi to push upwards. This gives you, I would actually view this as more of a contrarian view. So if we do see that dollar strengthen, right, dollar index strengthening, then we have the Aussie dollar to trade towards the downside. But if we do see on the flip side, if we do see the dollar weaken, then we have this trade idea to trade towards the upside. So keeping a little bit more flexible there, looking why we think that this could move, recently a bit different to the Aussie is that we had a bigger move towards the downside, bigger move towards the upside. New Zealand dollar has to close above that 6857, or you're going to be a bit safer, 6860 level before you look for that buying opportunity. It's coming very close. I would say be a little bit more careful with the New Zealand dollar now. It could very well push up towards the upside, but remember there's a news at 9:30. So in 40 minutes, if this closes above that point, don't enter the trade yet because there's a news at 9:30. Unless you're going to enter knowing that it could very well, shoot up or shoot down very quickly and hit your stop loss with that dollar strength or the likely dollar strength. So I would, rather wait for this to be a 10 o'clock trade if we do see that happen, right? It could very well be, inflation disappoints the market and then we see the dollar weaken and then this pushes towards the upside. So keeping that option available or that opportunity available. We have the Aussie dollar towards the downside. We have the New Zealand dollar towards the upside. This is a 30 pip stop loss for a 60 pip take profit level, quite a possible trade. Next will be the pound dollar. So pound dollar, we spoke about this on Tuesday and, I'm super happy with that. It went up, tested that region, turned back down. There was one trade there, bounced back up. Now it looks like it's sitting right there again. Unfortunately for the pound dollar, I think it's going to sit in that consolidation. I don't think we're going to see quite a big movement here. If the CPI number does come out quite strong, then we might see it move down, but it's got quite a bit to move down for, right? It needs to move down that 50, 60 pips before you're looking to sell. It could very well be moving that 80 pips before you're looking to sell based on the previous trade idea. And for the pound dollar to move 80 pips towards the downside, pretty much would mean that that downward move might be exhausted already. So if it does break that 80 pips towards the downside, I don't think that it would be a good place to enter a trade. I think that it might actually more likely bounce if it does drop that much. And also because the pound dollar, you look at it on a daily time frame. Oops, make that look a bit nicer. On a daily time frame, if it does break below that point, the last time it was below this was last year in October, November. Once it breaks below that point, we see it test lower, but it's quite a while ago. So be very careful if it's going to break below that point. Okay, so a lot of volatility to be expected within this area. Just be a bit careful there. US yen. So I purposely skipped the euro dollar and the euro pound just because I want to leave that to last just before the news. And this is why I'm talking a little bit faster, just because I'm trying to rush it before the news. The US yen on the H1 time frame, just this morning we were talking about it, saying that if it breaks above this point, above this 1.116.23 level, we can look for that buying opportunity. I think this is still a very valid, very good idea, especially if we see that strong CPI number, we see the dollar index pushing higher, and also that small move towards the upside needs to close above 116.3 36 or 116.40, a 30-40 pip stop loss. I wouldn't go all the way for tonight. I would say, a take profit about there. 30-40 pip stop loss, 60 pip take profit, a 1:2 risk reward ratio towards the upside for the US yen on the H1 time frame. Again, this highlights very important that you have to wait for it to break that resistance level. Same thing happened this afternoon at 11 and 12 o'clock. Once it came, hit that level and turned back down. So let it go up, let it close above that 116.40 level before you look to buy. Okay. Euro yen. So Euro yen, same thing. I think this idea still holds valid. Well, we just spoke about it not many hours ago. It needs to close below that 127.77 level before you have that possible 80 pip move towards the downside. I think this move up, this small little move up now is because of the US yen. We're looking for it to disappoint, looking for the ECB not to do anything and to push the euro down. Okay, we can see that euro yen push towards the downside. Okay, so could you be looking to buy the euro yen? Quite possible, but too many. I feel that there's too many levels that it needs to break above. First, it needs to go above that 128.62 level, and then 129, and then finally towards that 129.50 level. So I think quite a few levels it needs to break. I would rather look to sell it down. Okay. Then P5, then pound yen. Yeah, look, pound yen looks like it's ready, but don't get fooled yet. We looked at this on the H4 time frame because we had the lines there. This, if you did enter the trade already, could be possible still, but I think we're going to see a bit of volatility there. 50 pip stop loss at this point is reasonable. I don't think you'll go to 150 take profit there, but this trade would still be valid. I would say that if you have not entered a trade already, then about 152, below 152.40 will be a better entry point. Okay, but it still looks like a good trade. I like how it's resisted that resistance there. It's turned down from that resistance there, so we might see it continue down further. Then the USD CAD. Okay, so the US Cad, when did we speak about this? We spoke about this, well, on Tuesday, looking for that selling opportunity. It bounced up, came back down, tested lower. I think that if you did get into that trade, you would have made some money, lost some money, made some money, lost some money, and bounced all around. I think that at this point, we are seeing well, not so much. Let me just do a quick check. Right, the dollar moving down a little bit, that's why. So back to the USD CAD. We are seeing that move towards the downside. So I was just checking whether it is the dollar weakening or whether it's the CAD strengthening at this point. It looks like it might be both because it's moved quite a bit more than what the dollar index has done. So it looks like it might be both. I think that this could be I'll move this a little bit, right, just to make it clearer. This could be a good trade idea if you had entered from when we last spoke about it. Or another one would be to, if it disappoints, if the US news disappoints, then you could have a 30 pip stop for a 60 pip take profit towards the downside, but only if it breaks below this 1.27 or 1.27. No, I think it'll be a bit safer there. So about 1.2790, below 1.2790, then you look for that selling opportunity. But because we are talking about that US CPI number looking to be quite strong, we have that opportunity, but I'll wait for it only if it hits and swings above this 1.2850 level, then 50 pip take profit, 20 pip stop loss. This could be another trade that you'll be looking for. Okay, so I'll move it slightly because it's a next hour trade, not something right now. Those two levels above 1.2863, you can look to buy the US Cad on the H1 time frame. Below 1.2789 or 1.2790, you can look to sell the US Cad, both with good risk reward ratios, 1:2 towards upside or towards the downside. All right. Any questions so far? Thanks. Okay. If not, then to the feature of the night. All right. So unfortunately, the ECB news release and the press conference used to have a lot more excitement, used to have a lot more fireworks than right now. Right, so the euro dollar on the H1 time frame here, today it just hasn't done anything at all, right? It's just been sitting there. It tested that resistance, that 1.1072 resistance, came back down a little bit, tested higher again, and it's now sitting right there at this point right now. In 15 minutes before the news release, I think that we're going to see it not have any clear directions, right? It's going to sit in that cross range. It's not going to do too much. More likely, let me just look at it on the M15, right? More likely, we might see it come up a little bit. We might see it come up a little bit closer towards the 1.1072 level, which would be good because it will be a good selling opportunity from that point. Right, so why is it coming up? We've seen that it's the dollar index weakening a little bit, but in this case, I'm looking for it. I think it'll be a bit too, timeline might be a bit too short for it to move towards the upside, but I'll be looking for selling opportunity. You can, this might, okay, this is where the disclaimer comes in again. Do your own analysis, but I might be looking at a order. You might put an order in. You could have a sell order below 1.1025. Below 1.1025, your stop loss will be a bit bigger at 50 pips. Your take profit could be towards that 70 pip range. Not a super risk to reward ratio here, but I'll take this one away so it's easy to see. Right, not a super risk to reward ratio here, but you can see that if this happens at the news release, and they are the ECB is quite negative or quite dovish towards interest rates decision, towards what's happening in the Europe at this point, then you could catch that quick move towards that 1.0940 or 45 level. Okay, so this could be a pre-news trade. I don't normally tell you about pre-news trade, but pre-news order that you could put in just to catch that possibly quick spike down towards the downside. All right. Any other questions? Oh, we lost a couple of people. Any other questions at this point? If no questions, right? So bringing up the statement. This is not the statement yet, but so there's the monetary policy. This was last month's. So the main, I don't normally read through everything. I'll just scan through, especially the interest rates decision here. And then for me, I'll just look into, where was it? That one, the view about inflation on the view about inflation. I think this time around it'll be a bit different, where they're likely to talk about the conflict that's happening at this point as well. All right. Okay, I went through it a bit faster than I expected, so we got 10 minutes of waiting time. Anything else anyone wants to share or ask a question about? No? No. Let me just have a quick look as well. So tonight we have the news that we just spoke to in detail about. Tomorrow, Governor Low speaking on Friday, not going to move prices too much at that point. We have pounds GDP numbers looking at a bit of an upturn. So might be the reason why we don't see that much of a drop in the pound at that point. Canadian unemployment numbers or employment change numbers looking like a good swing. Unemployment rates looking to go from 6.5 to a 6.2. That would help the turn or that strengthening on the Canadian dollar that we just spoke about towards the downside. US preliminary University of Michigan consumer sentiment dropping a little bit. I think that wouldn't move too much at that point. Next week into Monday, we're paying a bit of attention towards meeting minutes, but Aussie meeting minutes doesn't usually do too much on Tuesday. And then we have the PPI. So you can see Tuesday, we do have the claimant count numbers for the UK. Could move prices. And then PPI, we do have the Canadian CPI numbers on Wednesday again. Retail sales number, this is going to be interesting. Retail sales number for the US. And look at that. Thursday morning will be the key feature where we're looking at the Fed funds rate. We're looking at that 0.25% increase. I'll be up 2 a.m. paying attention to the statement, the press conference, the projections. I think this would be a big price mover. So because of this big news on Thursday morning, we're probably not going to see too much happen through the early part of the week leading up to this. We might see a little bit on the retail sales, but then after that, it'll be all down to this because the expectation is 0.25%. Are we going to see a 0.5? That might be the surprise that we are looking for. And then on Thursday, again, still we have the Aussie employment numbers. We have the pound with the rates decision as well, the UK with the rate decision at 0.5%. Right, expectation might be for maybe further rate increases, but I think at this point they're all waiting to see because of all the uncertainty in that area now. But I think possibly no action from the UK at this point, waiting to see whether the last rate increase has the sufficient impact. I think we'll update you on that as we go through the week. And then on Friday, Bank of Japan policy statement. That's going to be interesting, given how we see the Fed funds rate. They might take the chance on the yen, on the Bank of Japan to tweak something there just to see what happens to the yen. And then that's the end of the week, right? So quite a important week next week, quite a big week next week with the Fed funds rate, especially the New Zealand GDP, the unemployment rates, and then of course the Bank of England's interest rate decision as well. All right. Is it 8:45 yet? Not yet. Anyone with a question? No? Right, so what we'll do as well is we'll go through when news comes out at 8:45, the news. But then once we read through that and we see any pending moves on the euro dollar, then we'll call time on it just so that I can swing back to the trades as well, to my own trading as well. So couple of minutes for this. Actually, while we're waiting, can we just put a, can you just respond in the chat? I know you guys don't like speaking up too much, but can you put in chat, like, are you actively trading at this point? Are you still actively trading, or you just, or how many trades do you get into on average a week? Put in the chat. You do 1 trade a day, 2 trades a day, 3 trades a day? Hello, anybody? 3 to 5 per week, 3 to 4 a week, 1 to 2 per week at the moment. Good stuff. Okay. And everyone else? Thanks, Vittorio, Suyun, and Amanda for answering. What about everyone else? Well, why I asked that question is because I'm doing it about, okay, yeah, so I'm doing it about three to 5 a day, 1 to 2 a week. Okay, it's more predictable market, and we'll do a 1 minute chart. Yeah, so that's what I do, right? I hang on, let's put that way. Okay, so that's what I do. I come in the mornings, I do the H4 time frame with you guys on the currency call. Then that gives me my plan, for the H4 time frame. I look at it and kind of think whether I'm to get into an H4 trade. Usually it's not ready yet, because when I give you that trigger or that price level to get into a trade, it hasn't reached yet. So I'll look at it on H4. Then right after the call, I'll switch all my charts to the H1 time frame. I'll look at it on H1 to see whether there's any trades. H1 and M15. So I'll go H1 very quickly, look at what's happening, go on to M15. Then, during the day, I'm pretty much on M15 to M1 kind of time frame, just to see whether I can, trade it to that level, to the H4 level, before I get into a H4 trade. So like scalp it to that level before I get into an H4 trade. So I'm looking at about 3 to 5 trades a day, on average about 3. Okay, good to know that you guys are actually jumping to trades. Main thing is about getting into trades, taking action on applying it actually. 8:41, the longest 4 minutes. ECB to buy time on stimulus exit in cloud of war. So see, that's the kind of thoughts, that's rumors and thoughts that's being passed around. We're going to see the ECB being a little bit hawkish, a bit more cautious. Ukraine wants to take back Donbass and Crimea. Crimea was many years ago already. All right. All right. So still nothing happening yet. Ooh. Wait, Forex Factory just went slow. Right, so I would say that the euro dollar idea still holds. It's probably not going to move towards that resistance. Again, if you can put it in the chat, are you entering a sell order at 1.1025? Are you jumping into that, just so I know whether you are or not? I know Suyin's already sold it 3 times already. See, first one to answer. All right. If you, it only works if you put it as an order, but just be careful of that. Size it down for that news. Okay, 2 minutes to that. What am I doing? Okay. I think it looks like it's quite a straightforward one on the euro dollar. It's actually going to be a bit more interesting in terms of the US CPI number, because the likelihood is that we'll see a strong CPI number, but also the likelihood could be that it might be priced in already. So many more variables on the CPI number than the euro policy. 1 more minute. I don't even know why I'm trying to refresh the main financing rate. It's not like they're going to change it anyway. Hey, Amanda.
Hello.
You have a question? Nope. Okay. Just. All right. So the still not out yet. Where is it? Just checking. You're all looking at my screen, right? Just make sure. Yeah. Where is it? Monetary policy statement. 8:45. We saw the euro shoot towards the upside now. Why is it not released? Okay, hang on. While it's getting released. Okay, so if you did do that order, it would not have triggered. Would not have triggered yet. We see this shooting up. If you haven't entered that order, it wouldn't have triggered. So now I'm looking to see what's happened that has caused that move up. Okay, here it is. So APP revised. Okay. Intends to continue investing in full, and then the ECB will remain unchanged after the ending of the APP will be gradual. Realize that. Okay. So they're okay with that. Okay, so just comparing the APP from the previous. So I think they seem to have pushed it back a little bit. 40 billion in April, 30 in May, and 20 in June. 40 in the second quarter and 30 in the third quarter. So change the APP a little bit there. So because of that, we're seeing that euro push higher, but I would say I would be a bit more cautious. I would rather be thinking that if it does push higher, if it does test that 1.12 level would be great. You could be looking for that point to turn down. Ultimately, I'm still thinking that we have the US inflation number to be released, so that could actually be, hang on. So that could actually be the thing that's going to push that back down again. So just be a little bit careful with this. If you're going to buy on a short term, might be a little bit late at this point. I'd rather wait for the 9:30 news to be released. Right? So yeah, 40 pips up on the euro. But still within this 1.1075 resistance level. See, the last time it came to this point, it still turned back down. So be a bit more careful at that. All right. So did you jump into a trade soon? Yes or no? No. Okay. All right. So I'm going to jump off at this point. We just do a quick session with the euro pushing up now. I'd say wait for it to hit either that resistance or to turn down from this point to see whether the 9:30 news. I think 9:30 news is going to be more crucial. And also remember that there is the press conference as well at 9:30. So could be a push up, and then during the press conference and the US inflation number to possibly push it back down again. With that, if you and Dim Hong has just put it into the chat as well, into the EcoFin platform, the updates on the statement as well. So with that, I will call time and we'll catch you tomorrow for the US Cad. Thank you all. Bye.